Raymond Doyle made one decision on a Tuesday morning that cost him more than $11,000, and the worst part is, he still doesn't know what happened. He wasn't careless. He wasn't reckless with his money. He spent 31 years teaching chemistry at a public high school just outside Dayton, Ohio, the kind of man who balanced his checkbook to the penny and never carried a credit card balance in his life. And on the morning of his 66th birthday, he sat down at his kitchen table with a yellow legal pad, looked at the retirement savings he'd spent 3 decades building, and made a single, ordinary, perfectly logical move that quietly set fire to $11,000 he had every right to keep. If you have a Roth IRA, or your spouse does, or you're planning to touch one in the next few years, I need you to stay with me until the very end of this. Because the mistake Raymond made is the single most common mistake retirees make with this account. Almost nobody will ever warn you about it. And by the time the damage shows up, it's 2 years too late to undo. I'm going to show you exactly what he did, exactly what it cost him, and the simple thing he could have done instead that would have kept every dollar in his pocket. Here's what Raymond wanted. The roof needed replacing. His wife Carol had been talking for a year about flying out to Oregon to see the grandkids, and there was a used pickup down the road he'd had his eye on. He added it up on that legal pad, $28,000, and then he did the thing that feels like the most natural thing in the world. He logged into his account, and he saw 2 pots of money sitting there, a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA. And because the Roth had grown beautifully over the years and felt like the bigger prize, he pulled the entire $28,000 out of the Roth. It felt clean. He'd already paid taxes on that money, so taking it out shouldn't cost him a dime. And he was right about part of that. He was right about exactly enough of it to feel confident, and wrong about the rest in a way that wouldn't reveal itself for 2 full years. Because Raymond didn't understand the order in which money leaves a Roth IRA, he didn't understand the 2 separate clocks ticking quietly inside that account. And he had absolutely no idea that the way he pulled that money out would reach forward in time and land on his Medicare premiums like a delayed bill he never knew he'd signed up for. And I want you to hold on to that detail, the 2-year delay, because it's the reason this mistake is so dangerous, and I'm going to come back to it and show you the exact dollar figure in just a few minutes. But first, I have to tell you something that might genuinely change how you see your own retirement, because what happened to Raymond is not rare. It is happening to millions of retirees in this country right now, in real time, and it's happening for one specific reason. The Roth IRA has been sold to the American public as the simple account, the easy one, the one where you already paid your taxes, so you can just take your money out whenever you want, no strings attached. And there's a kernel of truth buried in that, which is exactly what makes it so dangerous, because the truth is wrapped around a set of rules that almost nobody ever explains in plain language. The advisor who set up your account probably never walked you through them. The brokerage holding your money certainly didn't. And so you arrive at retirement holding what might be the single most powerful tax-free asset an ordinary American can own, and you have no instruction manual for how to actually use it without setting your own money on fire. So let me be the one who finally hands you that manual, calmly, in order, the way somebody should have done for you years ago. And by the time we're done, you'll understand your own account better than the person who sold it to you. The first thing you have to understand, and this one rule alone is worth the entire time you'll spend with me today, is that money does not come out of a Roth IRA in a random pile. The IRS has a strict, fixed order, and that order is everything. When you take money out of a Roth, it comes out in 3 layers, always in the same sequence, every single time. The first layer is your contributions, or the actual dollars you personally put into the account over the years. The second layer is any money you converted into the Roth from a traditional IRA. And the third and final layer, the very last to come out, is your earnings, the growth, the investment gains that piled up over time. Now here's the rule that would have saved Raymond from the entire disaster. Your contributions, that first layer, can be withdrawn at any time, at any age, for any reason, completely free of taxes and completely free of penalties. It does not matter if you are 40 or 80. It does not matter if the account is brand new or 30 years old. That money has already been taxed once. The government has no further claim on it, and you can take it back whenever you please. Stop and let that sink in, because most people have no idea it's true. They believe every single dollar inside a Roth is locked behind some age wall, so they either leave money sitting there that they could have used freely, or, far worse, they go raid a different account and trigger a tax bill they never needed to pay in the first place. So the real question with Raymond's $28,000 becomes how much of it was actually contributions versus earnings, because that one answer changes everything. If he'd contributed $50,000 into that Roth over his career and it had grown to $90,000, then the first $50,000 he pulls out is pure contribution money. Untouchable. No tax, no penalty, nothing. His entire withdrawal would have come straight out of that layer and he'd have been perfectly fine. So if his contributions were always safe, you might be wondering where the $11,000 of damage actually came from. Stay with me because that's the part nobody connects, and it has almost nothing to do with the withdrawal itself and everything to do with what it quietly touched on its way out. Before I get there, I have to explain the famous 5-year rule because this is where roughly half the people who ever touch a Roth get tangled up, and the confusion comes from one simple fact that nobody tells you. There isn't one 5-year rule, there are two. They are completely separate. They start on different dates, they govern different things, and mixing them up is exactly how an ordinary person turns a tax-free withdrawal into a taxable one with a 10% penalty stacked on top. The first 5-year rule governs your earnings, that third and final layer. For your earnings to come out fully tax-free, two things have to be true at the same time. You have to be at least 59 and a half years old, and your very first Roth IRA must have been open for at least 5 tax years. Both together. One without the other is not enough. The clock on this one starts January 1st of the year you made your first ever Roth contribution. And here's the part people love once they learn it, that clock never resets. It doesn't matter if you open 10 more Roth accounts later in life. That original clock, from your very first contribution, is the one that counts for all of them. So someone who opened their first Roth back in 2015 and is now 66 has cleared both hurdles long ago, and every dollar of growth in that account is theirs, free and clear. But someone who is also 66, who only opened their first Roth 2 years ago, has cleared the age requirement, but not the 5-year one. And if they reach into their earnings, that growth becomes fully taxable as ordinary income, even though they are years past 59 and a half. The age alone was never enough. The account itself has to season. The second 5-year rule is the one that ambushes people who do Roth conversions, and it works in a completely different way. So listen closely if you've ever moved money from a traditional IRA into a Roth. Every single conversion you make starts its own brand new 5-year clock. Convert in 2026, and that conversions clock runs from January 1st of 2026 to January 1st of 2031. And the rule is this: if you pull that converted money back out before 5 years have passed and you are under 59 and a half, you owe a 10% penalty on it, even though you already paid income tax when you converted it. The whole purpose of this rule is to stop people from using conversions as a backdoor around the early withdrawal penalty. Now here's the relief for most retirees watching this. That conversion clock and its penalty only bite if you are under 59 and a half. The moment you cross that age, the 10% penalty on conversions disappears entirely. So for a 66-year-old like Raymond, the conversion rule was never a threat at all. But for a younger early retiree, someone who walked away from work at 55 and is living off a carefully built conversion ladder, this rule is the whole ballgame. And getting the timing wrong on one single conversion can mean a surprise penalty on tens of thousands of dollars. Let me put real money on this so it stops being theory. Imagine a woman named Diane, 62, a retired nurse from Arizona. She opened her first Roth back in 2008, so her account sailed past the 5-year mark on contributions long ago. She's been doing $20,000 conversions every year to slowly shift money out of her traditional IRA. Now she needs to withdraw $15,000. Because she's only 62, those conversion clocks still matter to her. If she reaches into a conversion she made just last year, she's looking at a 10% penalty. $1,500 gone for nothing. But if she instead draws from her contributions, or from a conversion she made back in 2018 that's long past its window, she pays absolutely nothing. Same $15,000 in her hand either way. One path costs her $1,500, the other costs her zero, and the only difference between them is knowing which layer to touch. That is the entire game. Now hold that idea, knowing which dollars to touch, because it's about to get much bigger than a $1,500 penalty. It's about to become the $11,000 that Raymond lost. Here's the part almost nobody connects, and this is where the words in the title, "Save You Thousands," stop being a figure of speech and turn into a literal number coming out of your pocket. The thing about retirement income is that it does not exist in a vacuum. Every dollar you pull from the wrong account doesn't just get taxed on its own and disappear. It raises a single number called your Modified Adjusted Gross Income, your MAGA, and that number quietly reaches into corners of your financial life you would never think to connect to a withdrawal. And the most expensive corner of all, for any retiree on Medicare, is something called IRMA, the Income-Related Monthly Adjustment Amount. That's the government's polite name for a surcharge they bolt directly onto your Medicare premiums the moment your income climbs too high. Here's exactly how it works in 2026, and these are real, current numbers, not estimates. The standard Medicare Part B premium this year is $202.90 a month. That's what most people pay. But the instant your modified adjusted gross income crosses $109,000 as a single filer, or $218,000 as a married couple filing jointly, you stop being most people. You get pushed into a surcharge bracket and your premium jumps. And now I need you to understand the single cruelest feature in this entire design, because this is what got Raymond. IRMA is not a gentle slope. It is a cliff. If you go $1 over that threshold, one single dollar, you do not pay a surcharge on just that dollar. You pay the full surcharge for the entire bracket. A retiree sitting at $109,001 pays the exact same surcharge as someone who earned $135,000. And at the higher brackets, those surcharges keep climbing until the total Part B premium can reach nearly $690 a month per person, with another Part D surcharge of up to $91 a month piled on top. For a married couple where both spouses are on Medicare, crossing one of these thresholds can cost well over $1,000 per person, more than $2,000 for the household in a single year for $1 of income that tipped them over the edge. And now, finally, the detail I asked you to hold on to from the very beginning. Irma looks backward. The premium you pay in 2026 is not based on your 2026 income. It's based on your income from 2 years ago, your 2024 tax return. So when Raymond pulled that $28,000 out in a way that spiked his income for the year, the bill did not arrive that day. It went quiet. It waited. And 2 years later, it showed up as a steady increase in the Medicare premiums coming straight out of his and Carol's Social Security checks month after month, with no obvious connection to the withdrawal that caused it. Across both of them, but between the higher Part B and Part D surcharges and the way it cascaded through his taxes, the move cost the Doyles more than $11,000 over the years it rippled through. And here's the truly painful part, the second mistake I promised you at the start. When that withdrawal first hit his tax return and Raymond saw the tax bill, he panicked, assumed he needed even more cash to cover it, and went back in and pulled a second withdrawal to pay the taxes on the first one, spiking his income again and pushing himself deeper into the surcharge brackets. One uninformed move became two. The first mistake was reaching for the wrong account. The second was reacting in fear instead of understanding what had actually happened. He never knew the two withdrawals, and the Medicare increase 2 years later were the same story. He just figured that's what getting older costs. Now here's the part that flips this entire thing on its head, and it is the single most important reason a Roth IRA is such a quietly powerful weapon in retirement. A qualified withdrawal from a Roth IRA does not count toward your modified adjusted gross income. It is invisible to that number. It does not show up in the calculation that sets your ARMA bracket. So picture the exact same situation handled correctly. A retiree who needs that $28,000 with a Roth that's fully seasoned pulls the entire amount out and their Magi does not move 1 inch, which means their Medicare premiums 2 years later don't move either. Compare that to the person who pulls the same $28,000 from a traditional IRA, where every dollar is fully taxable and watches it shove their income straight toward an ARMA cliff. Same money in the bank, same lifestyle. Same roof, same truck, same plane tickets. But one path can cost over $2,000 a year in extra Medicare premiums, and the other costs nothing. That gap, year after year, is the thousands of dollars this is all about, and it is completely verifiably real. And the Roth advantage doesn't stop at Medicare. There's a second place this invisibility quietly pays you, and it's the way your Social Security benefits get taxed. The IRS uses a figure called provisional income to decide how much of your Social Security check becomes taxable, and these thresholds are brutally low and haven't been adjusted for inflation in decades. For a single person, a once provisional income crosses $25,000, part of your Social Security starts getting taxed, and above $34,000, up to 85% of your benefit can be dragged into taxable income. For a married couple, it's $32,000 and $44,000. Those are not high numbers. An ordinary retiree blows past them without trying. And once again, qualified Roth withdrawals do not count toward provisional income. Picture a married couple drawing $38,000 a year in Social Security and needing another $20,000 to live on. Pull that $20,000 from a traditional IRA, and it drags a large slice of their Social Security into the taxable column. Pull the same $20,000 from a seasoned Roth, and their provisional income barely moves, far less of their benefit gets taxed, and the difference easily runs a few $1,000s in their favor in a single year. Multiply that across a 20 or 30-year retirement, and you are talking about tens of thousands of dollars that stay in their pockets instead of the government's, all because they understood which bucket to drain and when. There's one last piece I would be doing you a disservice to skip, because it's part of why the Roth deserves so much care, and it answers a question you might already be forming, which is, if the Roth is so valuable, when should you actually use it? With a traditional IRA, the government eventually forces you to start pulling money out whether you need it or not, on a schedule, taxing it the whole way. Those required minimum distributions grow larger every year as you age. They are one of the biggest hidden drivers of IRMA surcharges and Social Security taxation for older retirees. But a Roth IRA has no required minimum distributions during your lifetime. None. The government never forces your hand. It can sit there and grow completely untaxed for as long as you live, and you alone decide if a single dollar ever comes out. Which means in many cases, the Roth is the very last account you should drain, not the first. Every year you leave it untouched is another year of tax-free growth and another year of keeping that money out of every income calculation that can hurt you. Raymond reaching for his Roth first, before he ever touched his traditional IRA, was almost exactly backwards from what the math would have quietly told him to do. So let me hand you the part you can actually act on, because knowing the rules is only half of this, and the other half is knowing what to do before you ever click that withdrawal button. First, before you touch anything, find out exactly how much of your Roth is contributions, how much is conversions, and how much is earnings. Your custodian tracks all three, and you have every right to those numbers. Those three layers are the foundation of every smart decision because they tell you precisely how much you can pull out today with zero tax and zero penalty. Second, confirm where you stand on both 5-year clocks. If your first Roth has been open more than 5 years and you're past 59 and a half, the earnings rule is behind you, and the whole account is yours to use freely. If you've done conversions and you're under 59 and a half, write down the date of each one so you know which have seasoned past 5 years and which would trigger a penalty. Third, and this is the one that protects the real thousands, think about your withdrawals across an entire year, not one transaction at a time. In most years, the goal is to draw from your traditional accounts only up to the edge of a cliff, whether that's a tax bracket, the IRMA threshold at $109,000 for singles or $218,000 for couples, or the Social Security thresholds, and then cover anything more you need from your Roth, which slides out invisibly without raising your income $1. Fourth, remember the 2-year shadow. Any large withdrawal that spikes your income today reaches forward 2 years and lands on your Medicare premiums. So before any unusually large distribution, ask whether splitting it across 2 calendar years keeps you under a threshold and whether some of it should come from the Roth to soften the blow entirely. And the last thing, the simplest and the most important, is the one that would have saved Raymond everything. Slow down. The single most expensive moment in his whole story was the moment he acted on instinct, treated his 2 accounts as if they were interchangeable, and reached for the one that felt like the biggest prize. There was no emergency. Nothing on earth required him to decide in 5 minutes. One quiet afternoon spent understanding the order, the clocks, and the 2-year ripple into Medicare would have saved him more than $11,000 and a great deal of worry. Your Roth IRA may be the most powerful tool you will ever hold in retirement, but only if you remember that the obvious move and the right move are almost never the same thing. So before you withdraw a single dollar from it, know your layers, check your clocks, mind the cliffs, and never ever let the one account that should serve you last be the first one you reach for.